Hello, welcome back to episode 17, the final episode of the Surface Explore Record series. In this series, I've been stepping you through a three-part methodology that I use to work with AI to build applications, and that's called Surface Explore Record, where you use the AI to surface decisions, then you use the AI to get to explore options for each of those decisions, and finally you get the AI to record those decisions, and you use those records, those decision records, to create the different requirements documents, the implementation plan, and then actually to build and review what's been built for your application. So today in this episode, we're going to finally end the series. I'm going to show you how I'm going to wrap this up. And if you've been following along, you know that I've missed a couple of weeks and not posting. I've been very busy on a few other projects. Hopefully you'll be able to see one of those soon that's related to Surface Explorer Record, but also slightly different. So hopefully you'll see that. So stay tuned, follow along, subscribe, and that'll come out soon. So give me a few minutes. I'm going to switch over to Claude Code running in a VS Code terminal, and we'll conclude this series. Okay, welcome back. Now, like I said, I have Claude Code running in a terminal in VS Code. And last time, if you were following along, we stopped at phase I3. This is where we were beginning to deploy our TaskFlow application. In the next two phases, phase I4 and phase I5, these are about deploying to AWS and setting up monitoring in AWS. Now, I realized that this would work great for my application, but it won't work as well for sharing this on the public GitHub. So I've deferred those two phases. If you decide to download this and do it yourself, you can still run through those steps and it'll work for you. But what I'm going to do is jump ahead to phase I6, and this is where we're starting the final acceptance, getting ready to say, okay, our app is ready for deployment. And notice the first three steps are walking through our product requirements document, our design requirements document, and making sure that everything matches what we wanted. So in other words, did we build the app that we planned to build? And then we also want to check all the empty states and make sure that they're verified. After that, we began some modifications. So making sure the README is up to date, making sure all the status files are updated, make sure the release note is authored. All of this are sort of like the wrap up, making sure that everything matches the current state of the project as we're finishing up. So what I'm going to do at this point, let's get this back to Markdown and then pull up our terminal. What I'm going to do at this point is just tell Claude Code that I want to start phase I6. That's the one we just looked at. But I want to stop before we get to the part where we begin updating our documents. In other words, I want it to do the product requirements document walkthrough. I want it to do the design requirements walkthrough, check the empty states, and then I want it to stop. Because then I can look at where everything is and make sure that we're in a good place and we don't need to go back and do any remediation. So let me kick that off. And while that's running, I will take a break and I'll let you take a break and we'll come back and we'll see what Claude Code found during this walkthrough. See you in a few minutes. All right, while Claude Code finishes some of those walkthroughs, I thought that I would show you that part of the walkthrough, Claude spun up the Docker containers that runs TaskFlow, and now it's going through end-to-end test. And what's interesting is if you watch the recent activity, you'll actually see where Claude Code is doing the test in the live version of TaskFlow. So you can see that everything is working even as it's going through the test. So I'll come back to this in just a few minutes, but while that's working, we can also do some tests ourselves. We can see the different projects. We can make changes if we want to. Let's assign this to somebody else. So, everything is working just like it's supposed to. And we can see our settings, the different tabs. We can look at our account information here and the settings for our account. So everything is working, and you can see here that we're even recording the activity as Claude Code does its test. So it's a good another good way to test it. Notice we even have a task here that I just changed so you can see it on the dashboard. So again, while Claude Code is running through the walkthrough, I'll step away and I'll come back in a few minutes and we'll see what it found. Okay, I'm back and Claude Code has finished walking through the the PRD and the DRD and doing the test. Now, what's interesting and what's different about these tests compared to the ones that we've done before, these tests were run against TaskFlow running in Docker. So it's actually the running application. Just like I showed you earlier when I stopped. Docker was running, and Claude Code did test, end-to-end test, using Playwright to check what was running. So let's take a look real quick at the acceptance report. The main thing is that it says that there were no items recommended for follow-up. Now we will see as we go through, there were a few things where it said, hey, you can go back and check this, or these are some minor deviations. But for the most part, it's pretty straightforward, and it follows what we had planned. So you see we've got a baseline verification. We've got the PRD walkthrough. If we keep going down, we can see the DRD, that's the design requirement document walkthrough, and then it actually checked the empty states as well. So Claude Code finished all these tests for us. So we have a pretty good idea that our app is in good shape and it does what we want it to, and it looks the way we want it to look. Now the next part in the implementation plan is to finalize just some of the documentation, and you can see it here, the README, the status file, the release notes. So the final parts of this is just to finalize those last few documents, make sure that everything matches what was built, make sure the README and the status files are up to date. At that point, we'll push it to GitHub and everything will be done. There's no reason for you to watch this. I mean, it's just some updates to a couple of tracking files in the README file. So I just want to thank you for being a part of the Surface Explorer Record series. I hope it's been helpful. If you have any questions, drop me a comment or send me an email. You'll find my websites in the description, and I'd be glad to hear what you think and to help you with your project. So thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.